the Student of the Game podcast, where we break down the life, strategy, and advice of successful individuals who are students of their own game and masters of their own craft. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to the episode.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the Student of the Game podcast. I'm Tim Stone, and I'm here with our special guest, Gabe Bowling. Gabe, thank you for being here.
Not an issue, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Let's dive a little bit into your story. Some people may recognize you from being affiliated with Grant Cardone, but tell us what you got going on and your whole story.
Yeah, man. Well, first and foremost, thank you again for having me here. My name is Gabe Bowling. I am a 24-year-old real estate entrepreneur, if you want to call me that. I've just been in real estate for probably the last 5, going on 6 years now, and it's been amazing to me. And right now I'm just trying to make a really big impact for everybody else that's looking for the one solution that's going to change their life. And fortunately, real estate's been that thing for me, and I just know it can be a solution for a lot of people out there. Where I started, let's see, man. It was college. At college, not necessarily for me. I did not like the classroom. I just wanted to be out. I'm a people person. I love communicating with people. And so I was like, okay, well, what's an industry that I don't have to have a college degree in that I can make a lot of money in? And Google helped me, real estate. And but I had no idea what I wanted to do in real estate. Like, there's so many different buckets that you can actually get involved in: selling real estate, buying real estate. And so the first mistake that I made, which a lot of people make, is going out and getting your real estate license if you want to be an investor and not sell real estate. So I got my real estate license and still had no idea what I was doing at all. I was probably 18, 19 at the time. And I just started cold calling brokerages that were looking to hire on people. And I knew for me, I needed to get around the right people, and not necessarily like the immediate instant gratification of making a lot of money, but I wanted to get around the right people with the right information and just do anything it took to get in the right rooms. And so I ended up working for a company called Marcus & Millichap. They're a brokerage that sells commercial real estate. And at the time, they were hiring people for free, like to come in and work for free. And I was like, all right, well, fortunately, I had, like, my family was here, so I could work for free. I ended up working there for about a year, completely free, didn't make a single dime there. But the one thing I did get was I pretty much had no experience, no information, no knowledge about anything in regards to real estate. And I took the next 12 months to just dive in and become obsessed with it and just become a fly on the wall, a lot of people will say. And so I got a lot of exposure in that environment. But to be honest with you, I was selling golf courses. I was working on golf courses, marinas, and ski slopes. So something extremely different, not a lot of inventory, and you got to be you got to love golf to sell golf courses. And I don't have a burning passion for golf. And then probably a year into Marcus & Millichap, my now wife, girlfriend at the time, sent me a post that Grant Cardone and Cardone Capital was hiring. And so I was like, well, he's really big. He's done a lot in the apartment space. I know that being in this office, there's a lot of people selling a lot of apartments, and you can probably make a lot of money in that business. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to apply. And I filled out the application. Of course, nothing happened. So I just started cold calling. I actually got on the phone with Jared, Sherry, and just was like, hey, are you guys hiring? I saw the post. I want to come and work for you guys. I'll pick up everything and I'll move down there and I'll start next week. And then fortunately, I think it was a combination of just building the momentum and the leverage from having the experience at Marcus & Millichap, as well as timing. Like, they just needed to hire people. And so I got my foot in the door there. And I was raising money. So I was an investor relations person for Cardone Capital and raising money for Grant for about 2.5, almost 3 years. And that's really where I became obsessed with multifamily specifically, the ins and outs of pretty much everything. So I got there, I got pretty good on the phones. I was raising a lot of money, helping a lot of people get their money invested in these great deals. And then I just started asking too many questions. I was like, hey, how does this work? Hey, with the legal side, what kind of things do we have to go through to set that up? And I was just really curious about it. And then towards the end of it, it was the end of the year, 2021. going into 2022. And I was like evaluating where I'm at as an individual with my wife, and like where, what does the path for us look like in the next 5 and 10 years. And so at the beginning of this year, I decided that I was going to break off from Cardone Capital and go out and start buying and acquiring multifamily, value add multifamily deals on my own. And, or not, you're never on your own in real estate. That's one thing that we'll go over, but raising money from investors and just having really good partners in place. So I took the leap. I jumped off, shut off all my income. That was a really scary part, jumping off of the ledge of W-2 income. And then replaced my income with consulting. I have a consulting business, and then I also just closed on officially my first multifamily acquisition, 55 units over in Daytona Beach, Florida, and that was an $8.2 million purchase. So in about 4 months after leaving Cardone Capital, Bowling Capital, it's the company name, Bowling Capital has about $10 million total of assets under management, and we are going to 50 over the next 12 months. So that's kind of the life story in like a very quick summarized.
Yeah, that's amazing. So like, I'm just curious, what are some of the, I mean, you're around Grant Cardone, like one of the most prominent multifamily investors, at least on social media. Like, what are some of the big things you learned from that, you did have to take that leap, off the W-2 income into doing it, but also very quickly you were finding success and doing it. It's like, what are some of the things you learned that helps you be able to, make such quick success?
Great question. It's the deal. So a lot of people have a lot of confusion about multifamily and what a good deal is and what a bad deal is. And to be honest with you, there is no definition of a good deal or a bad deal, because it's always based on the return requirement from the investors that you're raising money for. And so I learned to be a better chooser of a deal, or looking and choosing an asset first before I would look at the underwriting and look at the projected returns. And I never did that before. I would always open up the offering memorandum. I'd always open up an Excel spreadsheet and just start underwriting the deal. But then watching Grant operate the way that Cardone Capital operates, the biggest reason they're so successful is because Grant is an extremely good picker. And so if you can pick the right deals, everything else will fall into place.
So what are you looking for when you're picking a deal without looking at the underwriting?
Yeah. So the first thing, I have very specific buying criteria. So I'm only in primary/secondary markets. So I'm not going out into the middle of nowhere in Texas where nobody lives. I'm typically in an area. So like my specific criteria is within a 1, 3, and a 5 mile radius. Within 5 miles, I have to have 100,000 people of population in that area. And typically what I'll do is I'll take the rent that the tenant is paying. Let's just say it's $1,000 and you're paying $12,000 a year in rent. I want my medium household income to be at least 2.5 to 3 times of whatever their annual rent is. Because if my objective is to go in and increase rents, people that don't make enough money cannot afford that rent increase. And so I'm looking at location, because when you look at location first before you do returns, you can change everything in a building. You can change the interior, you can change the exterior, you can change the roofs, you can change the paint, you can change the pool, the landscaping, everything. The one thing you can't change is the location. And so entering into a location that is good is just going to be pretty much able to dictate how easy it is going to be exiting that deal in 3 or 4 or 5 years from now. The easier it is, this is one thing that I've learned that just stuck with me. The easier it is to buy the deal on the front end, the harder it's going to be to sell it on the back end. The harder it is to buy on going in, the easier it's going to be selling on the back end. And that's 90% of the time because of the location.
Yeah, that's exactly from Grant. I think I've heard him say that several times.
100%.
Yeah, because they're in there fighting all these other funds, the institutional money, the life insurance companies. And then once you get the deal, well, that's who you're going to sell it to. You know who your end buyer is.
Yeah, you'll never go into a deal, at least in the value add / multifamily space, you'll never go into a deal, or you shouldn't go into a deal if you don't know ideally who is your buyer on the back end. So for me, that 55 unit deal, it's not going to be somebody that's just starting out. It's going to be a smaller syndication, a smaller fund that needs to place equity into Daytona and get a return on it. Because I look at, okay, before I even submitted an offer into that deal, I looked at all of the, call it the 3 to 5 mile radius. I looked at all of the apartments there. And what I'm looking for is who's playing there, who owns property there already, right? And so what I saw, Cortland's a massive institution that owns 50,000 plus units. And I just look at it and I see institutions placing a lot of money here today. And normally, whenever a massive institution like BlackRock or Starwood, like any of them, whenever they place money, like billions of dollars into an environment or a market, they have some type of research or data suggesting that this market's either going to be growing today or growing over the long period of time. So yeah. I leverage they spend billions, probably not billions, but millions of millions of dollars a year on research and information and studying a market. And I'm just looking at it. Okay, well, they placed $1 billion in Daytona Beach, 2 miles away from my property. I'm willing to bet they probably have 17 analysts looking at the exact market research. So I'm just going to leverage my decision off of their decision.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I don't care who you are. Like BlackRock has done more research and spent more money looking into the market than you have. Yeah,
100%.
That's good. It's like, and I think I've mentioned this before on a podcast, but someone somewhere called it the Burger King method. Like McDonald's does all this research, like they want the best corner, the most traffic, the highest like eyeballs, like visibility everywhere, and then Burger King just buys next to McDonald's. Like that's their strategy.
Why? It's simple.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So where did this all start? And I think you kind of touched this at the beginning, but like the entrepreneurship, real estate, like going to do my own thing. Like where did the wheels start turning in your mind? Like at what point?
To be honest with you, it's just so many sleepless nights thinking what if, and I think it's like, the way that I operate and the way that I make decisions is not necessarily for the instant gratification or like I make a decision to sell a car, I get 30 grand today. Now what? I'm looking at, the decision that I'm making today. What is my life going to look like in the next 3 to 5 years? Based on the decision that I made today. So it's almost like I'm trying to go into the future 5 years from now and look back at myself. Am I getting closer to my goals? Yes or no? If it's a no, then I'm going to not do it. And if it's a yes, then I'm going to do it. And so the way that I envision my life is just, I looked at it and I said, okay, well, what is the opportunity here? And what is the opportunity if I broke off and started it on my own? And how big can I actually scale it? And so when you weigh the opportunities, it's like perfect. You have a lot of income over here, but your time is time. And so when you weigh time for value, I just found a little bit more value in having my time back and being able to craft something of my own. And I think it's just, you have this bug kind of inside of you where it's like, okay, you want to build something. You want to be the architect of this life that you are living versus helping somebody else build it. Even though I don't have anything against like people that are entrepreneurs, a lot of entrepreneurs actually make a lot more money than entrepreneurs. So that's kind of where it's just a bug that I've had. I knew like that was the last, working for Cardone Capital, that was the last job that I will ever have my entire life. But I do think I had to go through that experience to get to where I'm at today, because the information that I got from Grant and working there for 3 years, pretty much like the way I look at it is I got all of that information in a 2.5 to 3 year span. And I also got paid to do it.
Yeah, it was a college education you got paid for.
Look, I was making $200 grand a year, and I was getting my master's in life, business, money, and real estate. And so I took what I got, and now I'm firsthand going out and applying it. And fortunately, I can now say that we own some stuff versus nothing.
Yeah. So what are the first steps like? Say someone is somewhat educated on real estate. They've listened to a ton of podcasts, been to seminars, read the books, but they haven't done it yet. What would their first steps be to actually get a deal?
Well, the beginning, I would always work on finding the right people. So a lot of people think that you have to do this alone, and you really don't. Like if you're really good at underwriting deals and like you're studying the game and you're learning, okay, well, here's the T12 and here's the proper way to actually go out and project. Maybe that's your strong suit. And then you find somebody that's really good at sourcing deals and finding the deals and running asset management, and you two partner and go out and do a deal. And so a lot of people get stuck up on, well, I'm alone and I have my husband, I have a couple of friends, but I could never raise money from investors and go out and do something big enough. So I think the first thing that you have to do is fix your mindset of what you can and can't do. And then really, you really just have to do it. I know that's such a cliche thing to do or say, but so many people get so stuck on the education because they feel like they have to know everything before jumping and actually submitting an offer on a deal. I've seen so many people spend so long on the educational piece, and then they submit their first offer on the deal, and then the broker tells them no, and then they get so discouraged and they never try to go out and buy a deal. Like I had to submit probably 10 to 12 different offers on properties to land on this one. And so it's just a repetition game. The most important thing that I will personally say that I could have done better is have a bigger pipeline of investors, have a bigger pipeline of people that can help me at the beginning.
Gotcha. So like building the team and finding the right people, what are the steps to that?
Well, you got to know. Well, first, before you ever like switch that mode of like going from a person that's getting educated to a real estate investor, like you have to have confidence of what the deal is supposed to look like from a team. So knowing what a team should look like, and then once you have kind of a rough draft of the team, then you pretty much switch a gear and you go, okay, submit an LOI. Or source a deal, underwrite it, walk it, tour it, submit LOI, done. Do it 10 times and you'll land on your first deal. But ideally a team is you're going to want to have, and it's tailored towards like people that are trying to do bigger deals. So if you're like 32 units, 60 units, 70 or 100 units, you're going to end up raising money. So if you're doing the 2s and the 4s and the 6s and the 8s, you can get away with just doing it between you, me, and a couple of buddies and just forming like an entity, a JV. Mm-hmm. And if you're trying to get to like, my first deal is 55 units, my next deal should be 90, but ideally I'd like to be around the 100 unit space. If you're trying to play in this space, you're going to want to have somebody that can execute the business plan at the property. So this is typically referred to as asset manager, somebody that has experience managing the manager of that property. Because when you take over, like acquisitions is extremely fun. Like going through underwriting, going with the lender and raising the money, it's really fun. But if you can't execute on the business plan and do the renovations or increase the rents, whatever your business plan is, there's no money that's going to be made at that property. Like that's going to be your first and last deal. And so having somebody that can run point on the asset management is 100% crucial. Having somebody that can sign on the debt is I'd probably say that's the biggest hurdle of finding a person that can sign on the debt, at least at the beginning, because a lot of people are newer. And so finding somebody that is going to personally guarantor the loan, it's a little bit tricky. But again, just networking and finding the right people that want to be passive, that's your solution right there. So somebody signing on the debt, somebody managing the asset, and then somebody raising the capital. Those are your three main things. And so for like my last deal, the way I was able to do that, because it was a $4.8 million loan. I don't have a $4.8 million net worth. Typically, banks will require your net worth to be the similar or 100% of the loan amount, and then also have about 10% liquidity of whatever the loan amount is. And so I brought in my partner on the deal. His name's Ken Gee. He's a bigger guy here in Tampa. And he has a property management company, and he has a fund that also acquires multifamily deals. And so he came in and he signed on the debt, and then his property management company is managing the property. So that alone solved two of the three problems. And the third one was raising the equity, which we both did. So I raised equity, he raised equity. He has his management platform to manage the property. and then he was able to sign on the debt. So those three things all done. That's how we did the deal.
Gotcha. So what's the plan with this deal, or could you go back a little bit to how you found it? What was the due diligence period like, and then closing, and what's the plan?
So I found it was crazy because I left on February 1st. I remember that date. That was my last day, and I got an email from Ned Roberts, who's the broker who sold us the deal, with Marcus Millichap. He sent us an email on February 8th, I think it came out, and I saw the deal, and I went out there and I toured it, and it looked good on paper. And once I got there and I saw it, I was like, okay, I'm buying this deal, or at least I'm making an offer on the deal. And then I knew I couldn't sign on the loan. So I call Ken, and Ken's like, okay, well, let me look at it. And funny enough, his management company was currently managing it for the seller of the property. So he found that out, and he looked it up, and he was like, okay, this is we got the inside track that it was a really good operating, cleanly run property. And so Ken was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do the deal with you. And so we basically form our partnership, and we all get on a phone call with Ned. Ned's like, perfect. Ken's really big guy, so it wasn't an issue getting the deal awarded to us. We did a 14-day due diligence period, we finished it in 7 days. Like, due diligence is really just unit walks, lease audits, and a roof inspection. That's all we did, and that's all the lender required. And so we went out there. I spent probably 3 hours, 4 hours walking through each individual unit. Inspected the roof, and then got everything to the lender. The lender sends us the checklist, and the checklist documents. And that's really all like the process is of, buying a multifamily deal is you're going to get a loan on it. That lender is going to have an attorney that basically says, here's a checklist, make sure that the borrower gets everything to us in time for the closing. And that's all it is. And we got the loan approval. We actually fixed. It's kind of crazy because we fixed $4.8 million, and we borrowed the money at 3.8% fixed for 5 years. If we tried to redo that deal today, like just redo it, that money would have cost us about 5.5% today. Mm-hmm. And so It was really cool because we fixed it. And then we raised money. I raised about $1.5 million for this deal, and then Ken's fund came in and supplied the rest of the equity. And we closed on last Friday, and that's all it is. It's just it's an email from the closing agent that says, congratulations, you've closed, and now it's time to actually go out and execute on the plan. And so the plan, to give you a very high-level rundown on it, is we bought it for 8.2. We have a $4.8 million loan on it. So our equity was about $3.5 million. The average rents in place are about $1,000 today. My last 3 leases were signed for $1,200, so you're seeing a $200 rent increase today, and the market rent is about $1,400 to $1,500 today. And so all we're doing is we're simply renewing the leases. Instead of $1,000 or $1,200, it's going to $1,400. And the biggest value add that we're doing to it is we're adding in-unit washer and dryers. That's like when you look at the character, because they're all 2 1.5 bedroom townhomes with fenced backyards. And so when you look at it, the biggest difference between my asset opposed to like the brand new Class A stuff, amenitized 2018, 2019, right? The nicest of the nice. The biggest difference between my stuff and their stuff is the in-unit washer and dryers. Now, my rents are $1,000. The brand new stuff is renting out at $2,000. They're $1,000 over. And so all I'm doing, it cost me $700 to install in-unit washer and dryers. That's all. And we're pushing rents to $1,400. And so we should be able to sell this thing, depending on the debt market, we should be able to sell this thing for about $14 million in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. It sounds like a pretty solid deal.
from a return. Well, this is just my criteria. Again, it's just what I learned from Grant, because Grant, he's buying nicer and newer core Class A multifamily today. The majority of his wealth was created in the first 25 years of investing in multifamily. And so when you look at the asset classes that they typically invested in back then, it's all the exact same stuff that I'm buying moving forward. So
Yeah. So you mentioned how the debt market is going to play into that, and I've been hearing people say
Yeah,
that like debt is now the asset people are going to, and
absolutely.
you're going to see deals trading like, hey, we've got a 3% assumable loan. Like this is
Oh
why
my
the deal's
God.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's why the
yeah.
deal's good. How do you feel about that? And what are your
Uh,
insights
Listen,
on it?
man. Listen. Well, nobody ever knows. I'll put a disclosure. This is all assumptions, projections. It's
Mm,
all made up, right? What I think happens is inflation's at 8% right now. Fed wants to bring it down to 2. So what they're doing is raising the interest rates, right? I think in the immediate 12 to 24-month period, I think there's blood in the waters for anybody that owns property that has to sell or has a balloon payment that's coming up and they have to exit. And so if you can fix debt, like what I'm doing, I'm fixing my loans for at least 5 years with the options to extend if I need. And so the way that I'm looking at it is interest rates will go up and then interest rates will come back down. The question is, how long do they go up
how
for?
long?
And when do they come back down? And where can you sell on the way back down? And so it presents a really good opportunity. Luckily, we fixed that debt for 5 years. And so moving forward, like the strategy going from today over the next 2 years is one, I have to be positively leveraged. So if I'm buying at a 5% cap rate, my debt cannot be more than 5%. So
Mm-hmm.
I have to be positive. That's like a non negotiable. And so it presents opportunities because people have to sell. They want to get out of their deals, but interest rates are going up, which brings the value down. And so if I can buy on the way down for pricing and then hold it long enough where if I can hold it and interest rates start going back down, then I'm going to be able to sell at a higher price. And it's all based on timing. So macro level, interest rates go up, interest rates go down. The variable that nobody knows is how long do they go up? Up to what? Because you think like they can't go up to 15%. They go up to 15%, the US economy is going to have an extreme, like real estate is not going to be the biggest worry. And so what period do they come down?
Mm.
That's kind of the philosophy. Honestly, I think because of how quick they've gone up, they're seeing a lot of slowdown in the market, which is good. They could have overestimated with how much they needed to increase it, but it's all data. So they're tracking data. The next rate hike is going to be coming up next month, so we'll see. But
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. So what do people need to know about the types of debt that are out there? Because I feel like, and I've been talking about this, is there's
Yeah,
probably a lot of people out there that learned how to syndicate on YouTube. And I fully
yeah,
realize I'm a 21-year-old on the internet talking about this right now, but there's probably a lot of people learned how to syndicate on YouTube and they've bought a deal at a 3 cap with an adjustable rate mortgage and like their interest rate's going to go up and
yeah.
their exit plan was buy at a 3 cap, raise the rent, sell at a 3 cap.
Yeah, well,
Like,
that's why assumptions matter. That's why knowing
mhm.
what you're getting into matters. Like before, because this is especially when you're doing deals where you're raising money from investors. Like the difference between you and I doing a deal, a duplex together, is if it goes sour, we're the only two people that it affects. But whenever
Mhm.
you get into the bigger space, you take on a lot more responsibility. And so
Mhm.
with that responsibility comes like you have to know what you're doing. And so understanding the different types of debt, like today where pricing is, a lot of deals that are getting done are bridge loans. Bridge loans are typically floating loans where you can't fix the interest rate. And so interest rates going up does not help that. And so if you bought a deal over the last 24 months on a floating loan and you can purchase what's called a rate cap from, it's basically insurance for if the interest rates go up a certain amount, but they're getting very costly. Um, Whenever you project, be conservative. Not extremely conservative, but like if you're buying, you look at it, go pre-COVID. What's that asset trade for? Are you buying a 6 cap pre-COVID that's today a 4.5? And then if you have to exit in 2 years from now, understand that you're probably not going to be able to exit at a 4.5. Like do your underwriting and have different models at what happens if you exit at a 5, or what happens if you exit at a 6, or even a 7, and like manage the expectations of the investors on the front end. Like, hey, this is what the projections say based on this amount. But just so you understand, we are aware of the debt environment. If for some odd reason interest rates stay at 8% for the next 5 years, right? Worst case scenario, and we have to sell at a 7 cap, this would be the returns. And I think managing the expectations of the investors on the front end is so helpful there. But to go back to your original question, don't buy a 3 cap on a floating debt with no rate cap and assume that you can sell it at a 3 cap.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the educational part. Like, you got to go through the educational part, because in multifamily, things can go south very quick, and they're bigger deals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are you thinking there's going to be a lot more opportunity in the multifamily market?
100%. 100%. I've never been more happy, because it's like, you look at the macro level, like what happens if interest rates go up, specifically to multifamily. Well, if you have time on your hand and you don't have to sell, you're not selling, because you're like, if you didn't sell over the last 2 years when, cap rates were so compressed at 3s and 3.5s, you're never going to sell at an environment where you have to sell at a 6 or a 7, right? And so you think about it, who are going to be the sellers over the next 12 to 24 months in this environment? It's the people that have to sell. They have no other option, because they have a balloon payment coming up. And so if you're in, or they might, like, I'm looking at a 90 unit deal right now where they bought it last year, and they assumed floating debt with no rate cap. So it's gone up dramatically, and they're exiting. Why do you think I'm excited about this deal? It's because they have to sell. So I'm going in. They
with
brought
leverage.
It out. Yeah, they have to sell. And I'm going in. They brought it out at $18 million 2 months ago. And guess what? The rate hike happened. Guess what? Interest rates got more expensive, or debt got more expensive. So in multifamily, it's all logical. It's never emotion tied with like single family homes. It's all like, my debt cost me this. If my debt cost me more, I can't afford to pay X amount. And so I'm going in at that deal at about $15 million. And if I can get it at 15, I am stealing it. Like stealing it. It's worth, if you go back 6 months, that deal is worth 21 to 22 million. And so if I can buy it at 15 and put 5 or 7 year debt on it, I'm picked up $7 million, and all I have to do is wait. And there's $500 of upside. But going back to it, I think single-handedly, like, if you could go back to 08 and 09, it's not going to be the same, like, faulty mortgages, but it's going to be the same environment where people have to exit. If you could go back knowing what you know today and go back to 08 and 09 and buy throughout the entire time, that's how I'm envisioning the next 24 months. And so I couldn't be more excited.
Yeah. So it's time for people to stay liquid and wait for it.
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But also not wait the whole time, because you're still buying deals.
Here's one thing that I'll say that's very important for people to understand is you have to be showing up on deals like today. Like, it's happening today. I have my consulting business. I'm in deals in Phoenix, Arizona, Texas, Georgia, the Carolinas, and Florida. I'm in Florida. And so I have a pulse on a lot of the deal flow that's going on in Phoenix and all these markets, right? And so I'll give you a live example of why showing up and having relationships with brokers that control, like, because brokers control the market. If you don't have a relationship with the brokers in the markets that you want to buy in, they're never going to give you a deal. They're not going to award you the deal. And so I have a client out in Phoenix, Arizona. There was a deal that was brought out 3 months ago for $19 million. They have it under contract for 12.5 today. And the reason that happened is they brought it out at 19 million. We submitted an offer for 15. We didn't get the deal. They awarded the deal to somebody else that came in at a higher price tag. That guy that they awarded it to ended up backing out and losing $100,000 of non-refundable money because of what happened in the debt environment. But guess what? The owners of this property have to sell. They have to exit before December of this year. And so the broker, the first thing he's doing is he's going to go back to all of the people that submitted offers on that property and say, hey, you submitted an offer on this deal. The buyer ended up backing out. Are you still interested? I was like, Absolutely. We're absolutely still interested, but obviously, what's been going on with the debt environment and the effect of that. What's the expectation of the sellers for pricing? Well, based on today, we think we'll walk away at 14. Okay, great. Here's an offer for 12 and a half. We'll close. We have to give them surety of close, and then we got the deal under contract. That's a $6.5 million price reduction. And so that's why I'm saying, like, this is going to happen over the next 24 months. But the only way that you get to take advantage of it is if you're playing the game. And so,
yeah. So get in the game.
Yeah, simple.
Yeah. How, I saw on your Instagram that you just put out a free course. Is that how people can get in the game? Is that the best way?
Yeah, it's being edited right now. It's literally, so my intention with that is, a lot of people have pretty much they have like an ebook or they have like a free like one-page document, and it's cool. I just wanted to like do it 10x. That's straight from Grant. Like whatever the competition is doing or whatever other people are doing, how can you do it 10 times better? And so I pretty much recorded everything that I know about multifamily and I put it into a platform, and it's being edited right now. I'm just going to give it away for free. Because honestly, like the information is out there. Like I'm not going to charge money for people that can go to YouTube and it's going to take a little bit longer to piece it together, but it's out there. And the difference between like going out and getting the information and then actually doing it is what matters. And so if I can help you implement it and actually do deals, that's why I have the one-on-one consulting business. But it's not for everybody, and I know that. And so that's why I'm doing this course and giving it away completely for free for everybody.
Yeah. So when it comes out, where can people find it?
GabeBowling.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'm trying to buy timstone.com, but somebody bought it in 1999 before I was born.
How old are you?
21.
Gosh, man. Come on.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Cool. So what's the greatest lesson you've learned in the last 12 months?
Jump into it. If it's scary and it's hard, do it. And if it's easy and everybody else is doing it, don't do it. Like it's so crazy too, because when you think about money, a lot of people think they know a lot about money. And it's just crazy. Like the more I understand and the more I'm involved in it and it's actually happening to me, it's like everything that I grew up thinking about money was almost like completely wrong. Like you shouldn't try to save your way to retirement like $1,000 a month at a time. Like you need to learn to trade. Like the way I look at it is money is a tool. Money is a tool that can be used to create wealth. And so a lot of people have this scarce mindset. Like they work so hard for it and they don't want to give it up. But that's the very thing that is almost holding them back from actually going out and achieving what they want to achieve. And so early on, like, I don't know your audience that well, but if it's like younger people, I'm always like, get in the habit of investing, whatever it is, whatever the vehicle is. If it's multifamily, if it's the stock market, whatever it is, get in the habit of going out and earning money, storing it well. Don't blow it on stupid stuff, especially early, and invest it because you'll thank yourself in 30 and 40 years from now. So the biggest lesson was to invest your money and do the stuff that nobody else is doing.
Love that. And what is a book that you've either recommended or given away the most?
That's such a good question. I really like Grant's real estate book because it acclimates a lot of people. It's super simple and it gets you acclimated to real estate without getting super confused. I would also go on a stretch to say the 10X rule kind of changed my life too, the Audible. I'm not the biggest reader. I'm a big listener and note taker. I take a ton of notes. The 10X rule, it's kind of changed the way that I think, and the way that I think is the way that I make decisions, and the decisions that I make are the results of the outcome, or the results of the outcome of the decisions that I make. And so thinking bigger, it's such an easy thing to actually wrap your head around, to think bigger. But whenever you take the time to actually write down your goals and like, okay, I want to be worth 30 million by the age of 30. And I've written this down every single day for the last, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years since I got into the Cardone environment. And the more that I write it down and the more that I see it, the more that I believe it. And the more that I believe it, like the easier it is for me to do this big stuff. Like not many people have gone out and basically, because I'm a middle class guy. Like I just grew up in the middle class, not necessarily being forced to work. Like if you grow up in poverty, like you only have one option. In the middle class, you have pretty much the option to stay there or to go up or to go down. But getting into the spot where I almost look at like the middle class as like the place not to be in the nicest way of saying it. And I have no other option but to succeed and achieve the things that I write down every day. And so the more that I think it, the more that I can do, and the more that I can do, the more I actually achieve. And so if you asked me a year ago, hey, do you think that you'll quit your job, give up 250 grand a year, move back to Tampa and buy your first $10 million deal? I would have been like, absolutely not. But then I came up with this goal and I just reverse engineered into it. I was like, okay, well, I want to have a $30 million net worth by the age of 30. What do I have to do to get there? Okay, well, I need to earn this much and invest this much, and I need to get these certain returns on these investments to hit my target of 30 million by 30. And thinking and operating like that has changed the way it's changed my entire life. And I adopted that from the 10X rule.
Yeah. Writing your goals down is such a crazy thing that everyone always tells us to do it. We've always been told like write your goals down, or New Year's, write your goals down. But Grant is like write them down every day, write them down twice a day. Like when you wake up, before you go to bed, every time you're sad, write them down. Every time you're happy, write them down.
Yeah, because you adopt a discipline. That's all it is. You adopt a discipline and you show more attention to it too. Because a lot of people write goals down at New Year's, but then they forget about it January 31st. Why do they forget about it? It's because they're not looking at it every day. Like Grant's he's really big on checking his cash position every single day. Guess what? I check my cash position every single day, and I'm very aware of what's going on with my money, what's going on with investors' money, what's coming in, what's going out. And if I didn't show attention to it, then something could mess up and I forget about it. It's the same with diet. It's the same with exercise. It's the same with everything. The more attention that you can show to it, the better it gets. But if you forget about it and you don't show attention to it, obviously it's not going to improve. And so I'm really big on tracking. Like tracking for me, because I can read a graph I think everybody here can read a graph pretty effectively, but people just don't want to look at their graph. If you look at your graph and you track it every day, you're only gonna go up. And then when you see yourself going down, you're just gonna eliminate whatever that reason is that you're going down on the graph. All right, well, stop doing that and keep doing upwards. And so I got all of that from, I'll say the 10X rule, but just working in that environment for 3 years, it just changes the way you operate.
Yeah. I got the 10X rule right here. If you can see it.
Come on, man.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever opened it. I just listened to it on audio.
Come on.
they're just collectibles. Yeah.
Yeah.
So were there any other points you wanted to touch on before we start to wrap this up, or?
I think the biggest thing is, especially if you're younger, I really want my messaging, if I could choose the audience exactly, would be the younger, like 18 to 20, call it 18 to 30. Like if you're on the come up, because you look at it, like the way that the world works, or at least the US, a lot of it is because the decisions that you're making. And so if you look at the older people, they're now, dying, unfortunately, everybody dies. And now you look at, people were 18 to 30, 20 years ago, and they're now running the space. And so evolution for me is very important. And if I can impact the younger generation to take more responsibility and want to make impact instead of just, wanting to make $1 million a day without having to do anything and lay on a beach all day, I feel like that's the culture. I feel like that's a very common thing for people to want. I want people to actually take responsibility and do things that can shape and help the evolution of the world. So that's kind of the big thing for me. If you're young, like start now. Like there's no, if you're in high school or you're in college and you're just wasting time, like stop. get a mission, get an impact, or get a mission, find out what you want to do to impact the world, and then just do it. Because whatever this is, like Bowling Capital, what I'm building here will last longer. Like I'll be dead and it will continue to operate. Like that's what I want to build. And so if we can just get more people that, because I know you're very like-minded. You want to move forward and you want bigger things, and you have big goals, right? We need more people that are 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 that think and act and operate the exact same way that we're both doing. Because I can guarantee you what you're doing right now in 10 years is going to be a million times bigger than you ever thought it could be. If you just continue to be consistent and have the discipline, like that's all it is. If you quit, then you quit and you fail. But if you never quit, you can never fail. And so I don't think a lot of people that are younger are kind of adapting and kind of taking that on. So I'd say that's like the big thing that I'll leave behind.
Gotcha. And I've been saying this since my freshman year of college. If you start now doing something you love or something you want to do, and you do it for 10 years and you completely fail, you're only going to be like 30.
Yeah,
you're gonna have learned a lot of lessons. You're gonna be,
yeah.
more skilled at the things you at least want to do or love to do, and you're gonna be 30, which is not old. So like
30,
10 years, you'll be 30.
Yeah, you still got another 50 years in you, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 50.
Yeah, statistically, you do. Like,
that's an entire lifetime.
Life could end at any moment, but statistically, you're gonna live till like 85, 90.
Yeah, it's like what's the worst thing that happens? You fail and then you're 30 and you can keep doing it. Yeah, you can find something else.
10 more years and you're 40. You're not even halfway there.
Yeah. Invest in real estate. I'll say that. Real estate's changed my life. I've never had money before. I don't know. I started making a decent amount of money when I was working for Grant. And then these last 4 months being on my own, like life changing, blown everything up. And primarily it's just because of one, the information that I have about real estate, and then also just going out and applying it. Like you can make, it's a crazy stat, and you can fact check me on this because nobody else has. If you can work, like my way to generational wealth, if you can work from 20 to 30 and invest your $100,000 into multifamily, because in value add multifamily, you typically should be able to hit a double up on your equity every 3 to 5 years. That's pretty much like the golden standard. And so, let's be aggressive. Let's assume, and it's assumptions. If you can hit a double up on equity every 3 years over a 30-year period, if you can invest $100,000 by 30, and the 30-year period goes by, and all you can do is just track that single $100,000 investment over a 30-year period, the $100,000 becomes $100 million of principal. And the cash flow on $100 million, let's just assume it's 6%, that's $6 million a year in cash flow versus a retirement account at $1 million, and you're going to have to withdraw, pay taxes on it, and you're going to live on $3,000 a month. And so that's like the beautiful thing about multifamily is the multiplication effect. And so if you can learn the game, and even if you're not doing it yourself, because you can invest passively, if you can learn the game and become a great investor and invest in great operators and syndicators that are doing it, and you track that single investment of $100,000 over a 30-year period, hitting a double up on equity every 3 years, it will turn into $100 million of principal.
I can't do the math right now, but it doesn't sound
one
incredibly
turns
wrong.
Into two, yeah, one turns into two turns
four.
into four. Yeah, you just track it out. It's kind of mind-boggling. Okay, so like my thing is, how do I get to $30 million by the age of 30? Because that's the game. Like the younger people, that's $100,000 turns into $100 million. Granted, you're probably not going to actually hit a double every 3 years, but just for the sake of it, right?
Say you do half of that. It's 50.
Yeah. So if I can get, $100,000's 50 million, just to be concerned, right? $100,000's 50 million. $1 million is 500 million. And you just add a zero. 10 million is $1 billion. 30 million would be 30 billion. How can I get to 30 billion? or how can I get to 30 million by the age of 30? And why do you like why? Because I look at it from a much bigger perspective. I want a net worth before I die. I would like to achieve a net worth of $22 billion. That's just the number that I wore in high school for baseball. It's just been my lucky number. How do I achieve $22 billion of net worth? I'm not Steve Jobs. I'm not Michael Dell. I'm certainly no like tycoon in the tech space. And so, what's like the most probable outcome of me hitting a $22 billion net worth? Well, I found the vehicle, I learned it.
That may be the end of the episode.
No.
Oh, you're back. You're back.
Somebody called me, man. I'm sorry
You're all
about
good.
that.
You're all good.
I lost the train of thought. I did the math. It's all it is you're doing the math. You find out your goal, 22 billion. How can I achieve that? Well, if I invest $30 million by the age of 30 and I can double it every 3 years, be worth 30 billion. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm going to be wrong in a really good way. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah. That kind of goes back to like the deals. Like if you can look at a deal, like worst case scenario, writing this down on a napkin and it still makes sense.
Yeah.
Like how could that deal lose, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
so it's like, hey, you know, it kind of makes sense that I could have $22 billion. Then like worst case scenario, I'm gonna do okay.
Okay. I land at 10. I'm still
land at 1% of that. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, you didn't.
And then that's also assuming that I never invest another dollar after the age of 30. So there's so many things that could happen. All I know is the target's big enough. I just got to work on getting the first 30. That's all I'm focused on. 30 million, 30 million, 30 million, 30 million.
Yeah, that's part of 10x. Make the target big enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if there's nothing else, we can go ahead and wrap it up there. Where can people find out more about you and follow you and your story?
Multifamily on Instagram. That's my Instagram. My good friends at Facebook helped me get that one.
I love that.
Right now it's multifamily and then GabeBowling.com. That's by the time that people see this, it'll be up and running. So just go to GabeBowling.com. The free course is going to be there. My deals are going to be there for Bowling Capital. So that's the place to be. And
yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. We kind of nerded out on debt and multifamily. I like that. People, I love that stuff.
Yeah, well, listen, people, like if you're going to do this, you need to know it. You know, it's not going and submitting an offer on a single family home and then going to a bank. Like it's not that easy. Like this game it's not just a game. Like you really need to understand what you're doing. But once you understand it, it's going to change your life forever.
Yeah. We'll end it there. I appreciate the time. This is Tim Stone. I am signing off.
Cool.